While many talk about the growth of the alt-right movement under Trump, there's a much less discussed and much better organized sector of the far right that has obtained significant power, the Christian right.
I brought my Bible. Okay?
During his campaign, Trump took care to appeal to his evangelical constituency, citing the repeal of Roe v. Wade and other key issues, signaling to his base. He received more votes from evangelical Christians than even the most overtly religious Republicans like Mitt Romney and George W. Bush. Prominent Christian fundamentalist Mike Pence is in the empire's second highest seat of power, and the entire administration is littered with his fellow extremists, such as Betsy DeVos, Scott Pruitt, Rick Perry, Ben Carson, and Nikki Haley. Now they have unprecedented influence over U.S. policy. And the evangelical movement is just one sector of the right wing responsible for the growing threat of fascism in America. Author Chris Hedges has written extensively about what he calls the development of a Christian fascist movement. He even went undercover among them for his book, American Fascists, The Christian Right and the War on America, as well as witnessed and reported on the rise of fascism abroad. I talked to him about neo-fascism and the danger posed by this once fringe evangelical movement's recent rise to power. Many are calling Trump a fascist, even the next Hitler. Can you define what is fascism?
Fascism is not really ideologically based. It's very protean in terms of its ideology. There's a German historian I like very much who wrote a book called Male Fantasies about the Freikorps, and he describes the Freikorps was the antecedents to the Nazi Party. They were demobilized right-wing World War I veterans who were used to crush the Spartacus uprising in Berlin and the kind of radical left that they killed Rosa Luxemburg and Liebknecht. And it revolves more around emotion, hypermasculinity, a virulent nationalism, a celebration of quote-unquote strength, of military virtues. It holds up a kind of moral purity that it claims to represent. It's hard. Robert Paxton wrote a very good book called Anatomy of Fascism, and he notes that fascism in every country has its own peculiar characteristics, in the sense that Italian fascism was very different in many ways from German fascism. I think that fascism, although I'll use the word to describe Trump, is perhaps not finely accurate. I think you're better off describing our system as what Sheldon Wolin, the political philosopher, calls inverted totalitarianism, by which he means that you're not replacing old symbols and structures. It's more like the old Roman Republic after the civil wars and the rise of Augustus. So you still had a Senate, you still supposedly had a republic, but it was all a facade. So you have corporate forces that purport to pay fealty to electoral politics, the Constitution, the iconography and language of American patriotism, but internally have seized all of the levers of power to render this citizen, disenfranchised. And Wolin writes that in that system, politics is never able to trump economics. It's all about economic consolidation, maximization of profit. And so what we're getting with Trump is, I think, a species of inverted totalitarianism with demagoguery.
Yeah, it's insane that one of Trump's first measures was basically making it harder for poor people to get mortgages.
Right. So what we're going to get is turbocharged neoliberalism. I mean, you can see it from all of the appointments, everybody around him.
His political base is far from monolithic. We have the Christian right, the alt-right. I know that you've spent an enormous amount of time studying the Christian right, but what exactly is the alt-right? How would you even define this ideology? Would you say it's synonymous with neo-Nazism, like how people are saying that today?
Yes, I think it has a lot of characteristics with neo-Nazism, but so does the Christian right. The Christian right, like the alt-right, is endowed with all sorts of conspiracy theories, coupled with magical thinking, coupled with an utter disdain for historical fact. And I think that what we will see is that the Christian right will become will fill Trump's ideological vacuum, because he doesn't really have an ideology. He's such a narcissist. And I think that will be handled through Pence. So I think this in many ways will be the empowerment of the Christian right, which I have always considered a political movement. I went to seminary, I grew up in the church. I do not consider them Christians any more than the German Christian church, which was pro-Nazi, was Christian. The German Christian church had the Nazi flag on one side and the Christian cross on another. That's how I look at the Christian right. And that's why you saw 81% of evangelical voters support Trump, even though his personal life makes a mockery of the very values, the kind of family values that they say they hold sacred. So I think what we're watching with the Trump presidency, especially as it comes under attack from the establishment, both the old landed Republican and Democratic establishment, you'll see his fortress become that the ideology of the Christian right, which I wrote a book called American Fascists, the Christian right and the war in America. I didn't use that word lightly. I think they are Christianized fascists.
The U.S. isn't the only country where we're seeing this far-right rise. Obviously, this is happening in Europe and beyond. How is what we're witnessing here connected to elsewhere in the world?
Well, it's the result of neoliberal economics, where you destroy public institutions. I mean, whatever you say about communism, and I was there in Eastern Europe, they had a first-class educational system, which people did not pay for. Everyone had health insurance. There was full employment. And so neoliberalism went in and destroyed, in the name of the free market, which everyone confused with freedom, all of those institutions. Huge state enterprises closed, massive unemployment. I was just in Poland. 2 million young Poles work as baristas in Spain or somewhere. And you created a new oligarchic class by selling off state assets. This happened, of course, as well as Russia. And people, finally woke up and realized they were being had. And they were being had by that quote-unquote liberal establishment in the same way that we've been had by these liberal elites on the East Coast and the West Coast. And we've seen the rise of proto-fascist movements in Hungary and Poland. We're seeing powerful proto-fascist movements in France, even Germany. And it all goes back to this idea that human society and human life should be ruled by the dictates of the global marketplace. It's an insane ideology. It's never worked anywhere in human history. But until we break the back of corporate power, we're not going to blunt the rise of these movements.